and that the Salt Lake City School District has fully complied with the requirements of GRAMA. Mr. Clara just referenced his status as an elected official. And it is certainly true that he is an elected member of the school board, but nowhere in GRAMA does it state that an elected official has special rights or access privileges under the law. When you look at, you search GRAMA for elected official, there's the definition up front, and there's some obligations of elected officials at the end of the section in terms of their compliance with GRAMA and their need to not disclose protected and private information. There's no general right of access to elected officials. In the sharing records provision that Mr. Clara just referred to, section 206, it speaks specifically in terms of the legislature. That is also a defined term. If they had wanted to use elected official there, they could have used elected official, they did not. So again, at the core, the issue is that the district believes that it has the right to treat requests, GRAMA requests, made by Mr. Clara, just as it would treat a request made by any other member of the public. And we do not believe that Mr. Clara has shown anything to the contrary in his argument.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clara, you have 20 minutes.
Okay. So if we look at the documentation that the district submitted, I just wanted to comment on some of those and that were just made in the opening statement. Like on page 11, they point out that, and I'm reading down on, it says prior to September, and the bottom of the page, prior to September 2015, the district, when responding to Mr. Clara's GRAMA request, attempted to streamline the process. And they say Mr. Clara was not entitled to review pursuant to GRAMA, but which he could nonetheless receive in review as a member of the Board of Education pursuant to board policies. And I'm not familiar with there's no policy stated here or cited, so I'm not familiar with what policy they're referring to, because if there was a policy that allowed me to see information or compelled them to give me information that I requested, I would definitely do that. This concept that, that equating me with the public, the school district last year has utilized GRAMA to do GRAMA requests on me, and they sent like to 15 different agencies asking for information from other elected officials about conversations that they had with me. So it's interesting that as a public agency, they're okay with utilizing GRAMA to monitor my activities and find out what it is I'm doing. But they want to now say, well, this is only for the public and not for an elected official to utilize. So GRAMA has been, has fulfilled its purpose in terms of allowing me as an elected official to govern, this agency and to find out, where things that are going on are inappropriate. Because to me, if I don't have the ability, or if I lose the ability to get information, then this whole concept of local government is dead in the water if the agency that I'm supposed to govern can hide things from me and not allow me to see things that I need to in order to see, to do my duty, in much the same way that it allows for the legislature here, to do that also. On page 13, they say here that Mr. Clara asserts that he should be granted fee waiver because he is a member of the Board of Education. His written submission to the Records Committee cites numerous powers and authority of the local Board of Education. However, Mr. Clara improperly conflates his status as a member of the board. One other, this concept here of this fundamental premise that I can only act as within the 7-member body of the board. A couple years ago with the late Becky Lockhart, I worked with her to help define the definition of a board member, and this law was passed, and it's in 53A-3-401, and it says, notwithstanding a local school board's status as a body corporate, an elected member of a local board serves and represents the residents of the local board member's district, and that service and representation may not be restricted or impaired by local school board members' membership on or obligations to the local school board. And That was put in place, and it's now the law, because there was this concept 3 years ago, and I got on the board, that school boards had to only work in conjunction, and that we quote unquote had no authority outside of the boardroom, and that was kind of the thinking. But oddly enough, that never applied to a city council member, a county council member, or a member of the legislature, but somehow did to the school districts, or there was this idea, like Ms. Andrews points out here, that I'm only supposed to act as is within this body, and this law here was put in place to clarify that my responsibility is to my community first, and that because I'm a member of the board doesn't mean that I can't ask and seek for information and obtain it. Right above the last paragraph, this is because pursuant to GRAMA's plain language, it is the government entity that makes a determination as to whether releasing the record primarily benefits the public. So here we're at odds here. You have the bureaucracy, which is the government entity, and you have the elected official over that government entity saying, yeah, this is important information. It needs to be released to the public. I need it to be able to make decisions and to correct inappropriate behavior that's at times has been illegal behavior within the school district. But then now they're saying, no, that they're supposed to have, the entity is supposed to have the decision-making ability over mine as an elected official, what they're going to receive and what they can release. So to me, it effectually, stops the whole concept of checks and balances or my ability to govern if this entity is allowed to keep information from me, or I would have to take another course of action that would be cost prohibitive to me. They're able to, this is the third attorney that they have now. We have a full-time attorney. They've utilized another attorney that they've hired, and this is the third attorney. They've expended an enormous amount of tax dollars and resources in order to keep me from this information, but instead they want to utilize, I call it, it's a cannibalization of public education, when the institution that I'm governing can utilize resources of my neighbor's tax dollars to work against me and my ability to make decisions appropriately on behalf of my neighbors. And so here they're citing GRAMA, saying that the bureaucracy or the government entity has the ability to make determinations what's going to be released to the public over my ability to even ask for the information and to receive it.
Only governmental entity.
Well, and
But-
the sharing records is between governmental entities.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm saying, it's between governmental
not
entities,
within
of which
governmental entities.
the board, and you would assume the board, a governmental entity is comprised of the individuals that are in it, but,
So, yeah, so, I mean, that is a technical piece that I think we all need to understand before we make a decision. I agree with that.
but we have records that would be provided with a fee. So there's a fee issue there. I guess we could, I mean, maybe we should address the records sharing provision. It is between one governmental entity or another. You're saying it's the same governmental entity. It's pretty much the same thing. It's a governmental entity, and we don't address the governmental entity against a governmental entity. We address a person making a request before us. So I think that we refer to just last month's decision, that it is a person who makes a request, a person who appeals the decision, a person who is before us, a person who is an individual.
Right. So
So
he's here as a person.
he's here as a person.
And that's all we can really consider.
Yeah.
And then we have to rely on the policies of the state as to whether or not he has a right to that. But under GRAMA, I haven't heard evidence to the contrary that they should be able to charge a fee under GRAMA. So can we go to the fee issue?
Yeah. He asked for a fee waiver essentially under that he was an elected official and had a right to the records. But the fee waiver is the public benefit, which I guess would be the one that would be maybe in here, which it might be.
Yeah.
There you go. So our responsibility is a fee waiver under the public benefit, was it unreasonably denied? So you can balance the amount of work as the public benefit. The public benefit is expressed here is for an elected official to do his work. GRAMA does express that a person is assumed that a person is presumed to do the public's benefit if they're going to have a publication, a story or a publication. So that's not being, it doesn't look like there's a bigger public benefit. So, although, do you have a motion?
So there's another motion for,
Access restriction. Okay,
I'll second her motion.
okay, there's a motion and second that it was not an unreasonable denial of a fee waiver under 63G 2036. It's been properly made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the other